Hello and welcome to Rooted and Restored. This is our very first episode. I'm thrilled that you're with us today. My name is Lisa Rowe. I'm joined here with my stepdaughter, Callie Rowe. We're going to be introducing ourselves, the work that we do, and we're going to be talking about what it looks like to set yourself up with a healthy mindset and goals for the new year. So Cal, we're here, our first episode. We've talked about this for a long time, and it's really exciting to be here on the couch that I serve clients with, but also the couch that you've watched a lot of different things happen over the last couple years. And I'm just really excited to be able to invite this space because so much of our work as clinicians happens behind closed doors. And so it seems like this will be a great place to maybe illuminate some of the work that we get to do and some of the things that maybe people don't get to see all the time. And so I was just thinking that today we could just kind of maybe talk about who we are, maybe who we are to each other, and kind of move into what it looks like to start the year off in a really healthy way and see where that takes us. How's that sound?
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Well, then why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the podcast world and just maybe who are you, why are you here, and maybe whatever else you want to share.
Okay. So I would say our relationship started in 2014. Or I could be totally wrong. No.
2012.
2012. So it's been a while. And I would say probably around the time when you came into my life, I started opening my eyes up to mental health, therapy. That's not who you were to me, but I started, you welcomed that into my life by guiding me towards therapy, and seeing that it would benefit me for the season of life that I was in. So I think I kind of got curious about what that looked like, and then also right, we've talked about how you're more of a mentor towards me sometimes, right, than the mother role, or what that looks like with having a step-parent. So I feel like I've gotten really curious, and then once I started going to therapy, I realized I really loved it. I think in the moment I hated it, being a kid and having to go to therapy. But seeing, as I grew up, seeing what I could give back to other kids from what I got from therapy, and seeing how I could be in a completely different place if I didn't have this path open up to me and I chose to follow it. So I would say that's where the passion lies with therapy. And then, I went to school for it, and then the opportunity arose to work for you, and I definitely pushed back a little bit.
You sure did.
But then I finally opened my arms and said, it's an opportunity, and it's just fallen into my lap with doing work, obviously, to support it. But being able to take a hold of it and not push back when opportunities present themselves. And I'm so grateful I did, because a lot of doors have opened, and it's been a really cool experience so far.
Yeah, and you've developed this passion for working with kids in transition. Where does that passion come from? I realized that in 2012, you were open to the mental health space, but where does that live inside of you?
I think whenever you meet somebody that does therapy, right, whenever they have a connection towards that client that they're serving, I feel like the therapist just presents themselves in such a different light when you have a passion for it, right? We've talked before, when sometimes you serve some clients that you've realized you don't love as much, you're not as passionate for, you present yourself a little differently. So I think when I can relate to my clients, or I know how they felt in those moments, and just knowing, sometimes it feels like there's not a light at the end of the tunnel. So being able to guide the client and know that there is an end to it that can be really good and really fulfilling, even though they feel stuck because they're a kid sometimes. So right, their parents are there and they have to kind of sit through some of the gross or icky, sticky stuff. And if they don't have a place to talk about it, especially if their parents aren't a safe place for them to talk to about certain things, especially if it pertains to them sometimes, right? Or they're walking through their own journey or their own hurt. So being able to give that to the client, because sometimes in some spaces I had that, and then sometimes in some spaces I didn't, and I went internal with everything, and I'm in a great place, but I know how that didn't always serve me. So being able to kind of teach kids how to pull it out a little bit and getting them to open up to me feels so good, because I know how it felt when I finally was like able to open and release some of those things. So
name it, right?
Yeah.
We often say in our clinical space that like bags are awkward, and when we can give it a handle, so we know if we put it on our back we can carry it, or we can pull up the thing and take it down the sidewalk, but it gives it an easier place to manage it. So it seems like naming things for kids sometimes can help them navigate their circumstances a little bit different. You said that we met each other in 2012, and I love that you didn't get it right at first, because that just speaks to how long we've known each other. And where we are today is not where we were in 2012, right? My life was a lot different. Your life was a lot different. We were both coming out of a lot of dysfunction. And when you said like mentor, I think that's important for us to kind of maybe elaborate on, because it was your therapist at the time that recommended that we take the labels off, like the stepmom, stepdaughter thing, or be her mom, or whatever that was. She really made it like an open door for us to really say like, hey, does it have to be that way? Who defines that? Talk to me about maybe what that was like for you to like have this new woman in your life. You already have, your own mom. You're in this space of transition, moving in with Dad and I, and here we are trying to make this work. Maybe just open the door to that.
I feel like I was a stuffer, so I feel like I didn't really allow myself to feel a lot of emotions, and I knew that like I wasn't driving the ship, so I feel like I kind of lost my voice in a lot of things. I feel like there were other like women in my dad's life or men in my mom's life, so I feel like that wasn't abnormal for me. Having the blended family aspect, so having other like little munchkins in the mix, that was really different for me. So I think I was kind of open to it, because in a way, like I knew like people came in and then left my life. So I feel like there wasn't really any pressure towards it. I think once like the transition happened, when I moved in with you and Dad, that was really different, and I think I didn't even have the bandwidth to be like able to even say like what I was feeling or have emotions. I just knew I was angry and sad, but I don't even think I can name that in the moment. I was just a person or a body just standing there, looking back on that. But I think there sometimes is so much pressure around like having a step parent, right? Or like you said, my mom is still in my life. She's my mother. So nobody's going to replace that. But there was a level of absence with some things. So you kind of stepped in and were able to mentor and show me like what a woman looks like. Obviously we're still walking through our own stuff, so healthy and
still
unhealthy.
Am.
Yes. Right, therapists aren't perfect. But you were able to also show me like, right, what it looks like to go through a struggle, or right, have a rupture in a relationship, and be able to, and you're still teaching me how to heal it, right, or have conversation, and still have a healthy relationship, or right, just because there's a rip in it, right, doesn't mean that it's forever gone. You can repair it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so when Dr. Kennard, your therapist, gave us the tool, right, and thank goodness I knew enough to say that she needs something, right, that we can't give her, that she would come to school with you and meet with you in this transition when you really felt like you were having an out-of-body experience. It almost feels like I don't know what's going on inside of me, going back to what you were saying about working with kids and transition, like what's normal, what's not normal. It's so hard to identify that, right? And she gave us the name for a lot of these things that then you could maybe feel like you were more in charge of. It certainly helped me, because the minute I could say, Kelly, I don't want to be your mom. That's not what I'm here for. I'd like to be a woman in your life that can help pave a path or mentor you. And that's kind of stuck with us all these years. And it really took the pressure off, because there's certain roles or parts that I play in your life, but like it's clearer now than it ever was. And I think that when we meet people that have similar stories to us, that's what's missing a lot of times, right? And that's, as a therapist working with kids and families, you can help offer more of that maybe naming mechanism like we're talking about, to help them know like, hey, why does it have to be this way? Or what's this really all about, right? And you were coming into my life as a teenager, which is where a lot of, you use the word rupture, happened to me. And you were my first opportunity to reflect back to me what it looked like to have a teenager in my life outside of the world that I was working in. And that was really close to home because that's where I made so many dysfunctional choices. And that kind of got paid forward onto you in a lot of ways. Open up the door to that. What was that like for you, and how did we navigate that from your perspective?
I feel like I was like, not a goody two shoes, like that's a bad word, but I had so much pressure that I put on myself to be like perfect or be a good child, because there was always chaos, or a lot of times there was chaos around me. So if I was perfect, right, like nobody would get mad at me, like I could kind of just be in the shadows and be over here and nobody would bother me. So sometimes, like, when you did, like, reflect some things onto me, I, like, have something coming to my mind.
Yeah, share it.
Probably, you might not even remember this. I think I was sick. I had, like, allergies one time, and you gave me, like, Benadryl or something, and I had a girlfriend over. I don't even think I could drive yet, so I was probably a freshman. It might have been a sophomore, because I didn't have a car when I was a sophomore. And we were goofing around, like, not playing, but, like, we were joking around in the house, and you came up to me, and you were like, Callie, are you high? And I'm like, what?
I remember that.
No. Like, that was so absurd for you to ask me, right? Like, and that was just not my story at that time, like, at all. Like, I think the first time I chose to drink alcohol was, like, in college, right? So I was just like, oh, my gosh. Like, I internalized it. I was like, oh, like, she thinks I would do that? Like, what the heck? Like, I haven't demonstrated anything. And you're like, your eyes are red. And I was like, you just fed me Benadryl. I'm pale. Like, that happens. But right, like, looking back, it makes sense because that was, like, where you were at, like, where I was in currently at life. So it makes sense that was a concern for you, right? And then for me, I'm just like, what the heck is she talking about? Like, right? So, like, that's just something that comes to mind where... Right? And as you open the opportunity to have those conversations, right, you're able to understand other people's perspectives or what it looks like, right? Instead of being like a 15-year-old and being like, oh, my stepmom's literally crazy, right? Being able to, like, again, have like the healing afterwards, or then to be able to be like, oh, like, I understand, like, putting myself in your shoes, where that came from. Still frustrating for me in the moment, but that makes sense.
Yeah, and I remember that was a pivotal time for me too, because you know, what we teach our clients is that emotionally, at times where trauma hits us or where dysfunction hits us, we freeze at that age, whatever that is. So at the time that I had met you, I was 30 years old, right? And younger than that. And parts of me were still frozen in time emotionally from, like you're saying, like when I was a teenager. And so you're right, like when you reflected behaviors that I had seen in myself, that frozen part of me like got triggered immediately. And thank goodness that we had the path that we did, that, you know, it wasn't right away, but the conversations then I was able to own that and say, look, like I'm projecting onto you the things that I walked through. And it was hard because being vulnerable and not feeling safe, you were still like you were still a moving object to me, because you weren't being completely honest with yourself or with Dad and I about where you were in with your mom and how you felt about the transition. And so it was really hard for me to negotiate that too, as somebody that was trying to be more real and more honest. And we didn't have the dynamic where Dad got in the middle, where some step families have that, right? So it was like directly, which is a good thing, I think, now looking back. But at times it was weird because it meant I had to go directly to you. I got to go directly to you. I can now see that. But like trying to manage that and navigate that was like, that's a lot of things to have piled on, because people that aren't dealing with the blended step thing still walk through this. Yeah. Right? And so this isn't just a blended thing. This is a family. This is a growing up almost together kind of thing. And so I'm reflecting that, like, yeah, I remember like embodying like your behavior and going, oh my gosh, she's going to be under a bridge drinking next, because that's the kinds of stuff that I was doing at the time because of my own space and place. So I love that you brought that up, and I love that we can talk about that here, because I think people need to know that like they're not alone in this journey. This is so common for the place that teenagers travel, but also blended families, chaos, dysfunction, whatever it is. And the opportunity then to have some support with a therapist was really, really helpful for us. Yeah. super huge.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think you kind of got it? What age were you when you finally like just started to like be able to say like, I see what's happened here, like it didn't happen right away, right? And when did it start to like kind of feel like there was a rhythm or a healthier approach in our relationship?
I remember, like, I had, like, a moment where I think, when I was in college, where I think I had an appreciation. Like, I think it really hit me where I was like, I'm so grateful I went to therapy. I'm so grateful that, like, Lisa and my dad did this for me. Like, I'm so grateful for everything they've done for me. I had, like, a really bad experience with my mom. She called me on the phone and told me something, and it really threw me off. And I was able to instill that, like, this isn't my junk and it doesn't need to cause chaos in my life. Like, I remember I, like, left class and, like, was trying to deal with this, and I was like, this is stupid. I was like, this isn't mine to own. It shouldn't cause chaos in my life. And I instilled boundaries, and there were repercussions to that, but I felt good, and I was like, okay, like, maybe this makes sense that, like, I shouldn't have, like, attacked my dad, or that felt safe to, like, make him the bad guy when I was younger. So, like, things came full circle, and I think I knew that sooner, but that was just an event where, like, I remember, like, Dr. Kennard had always told you guys, like, you can't make her see things, right, because, right, you're against, like, my, like, different parents, right, so she was like, you have to kind of let her figure it out on her own, and you guys, I know it was probably really hard, but you did a really good job at that. So I think in college, like, when that happened, like, I finally was like, oh, okay, like, this is legit. This is what's happening. And I had to be in a place to be able to instill those things, which I think through having the history of, like, help with my mental health, I was able to do that and not continue to let things walk all over me, right?
Yeah.
And just put myself in this box. So I think that was a moment for me that was really big. I think that our relationship had grown more through that, but I think that was just for my self-reflection where I was just like, wow. I'm so grateful. Like, again, like, I've said that like 5 times, but that was just a moment where I felt a lot of gratitude, and I was so grateful for everything that everybody's done to kind of put me in that position to be able to do those things.
And let's hold space for how many years that actually was, because I'm sitting here like so grateful to hear what you're saying, but like remembering nights where I was like, Rob, Dad, are you, like, what is going on, right? I mean, that was like 6 or 8 years before it felt like it had really started to cement itself in a new space for you, right? That's how long this transition took. And that could feel defeating for somebody listening right now. And I feel like it's defeating for me to just say that, but to be kind of walking, like, maybe in the light on the other side of the tunnel, it was so worth it.
Yeah, and normalizing that for people, because sometimes I think, especially with kids, people, when parents are in a place where they're like, okay, I want this fixed, remembering that, like, the child, like, isn't as developed as you, and they don't even know how to communicate some of these things, and they don't even know how to name how they feel in those moments, right? So it takes time, and knowing that, like, the last 16 years, like, their brain's been developed to think certain things are normal, or right, whatever's been told to them. So unlearning that, and to some degree, like, when you have a blended family, like, when you have a mom and a dad, and then you have a stepdad or a stepmom, essentially, even if they are the best representation of it, in a kid's mind, it's mom against dad. So when dad tries talking to you about something that mom's doing wrong, or mom's trying to talk to you about something dad's doing wrong, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get defensive. Not everybody, but especially for me, and I've seen it with clients, I get defensive because I'm like, okay, I'm hearing you, but also, like, that's my mom, and you don't really like her. So, like, how much is what you're saying true? So that's where, like, having a good mentor or therapist in the life, so they're unbiased. Because even though maybe you and dad at times were saying all the right things, I still went into, like, defensive mode.
Sure did.
Because you're not on her side, right? You're against each other. So I still had to navigate, like, what was truth or what wasn't in those. Because also, like, in a sense, you are, like, on opposite sides. So sometimes you get reactive to situations, right? And then,
especially when it's going to hurt you, or it is hurting you.
Yeah, and I didn't know that at the time, right? I was just like, well, they're mad at me. shut down,
right,
pull back, like they're on separate sides.
yeah.
So yeah, I think normalizing, like you said, like it takes time. I have a client and the dad is kind of like, okay, it's been 6 sessions, like why doesn't she like so happy with me again? Why isn't like everything fixed? And mom's kind of like the soundboard where she's like, this could take like 50 sessions. Like she's little, like it takes time. She's trying to navigate how she feels, building rapport with the clinician, to be able to feel safe with some of those things, and knowing that like, I mean, that's just how it works with kids. And I think as a clinician you can feel it too, where it's kind of like, so close, get there. But sometimes just celebrating the small wins, and I think with goal setting too, right? Like it's not always like these huge big things. Sometimes just showing up for something, like celebrating that, letting that be a win for you.
And maybe that's a great bridge to kind of talk about goals and maybe just enter into how to approach a goal setting experience and what it might look like to create a mindset that can produce healthy outcomes. I mean, we've talked a lot about like it is a journey and people aren't always on the same page about things. What does that look like to you as you personally consider building a healthy mindset for yourself, perhaps setting goals for yourself, especially going into a new year? It seems like that's when everybody wants to set goals. How do you, or what have you learned about that process?
I mean, I'm definitely somebody personally, like when fear hits me, like I shut down sometimes. So I think sometimes it is hard to like follow through with those goals because it's scary. So I pull back and I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not going to focus on that. Like 50 other things to focus on. I think saying the goal, so easy, right? Like you want to lose weight, you want to go to the gym, you want to go on walks every day. So easy to say those things, but following through with them makes it 10 times harder. So like I just got a new car, super exciting, long overdue.
Big deal for you.
It is. But like through that process, right, I did make a goal, and essentially like a few months ago when we talked, I was like, by the end of the year, I'll have a new car, right? Great goal, but in reality, like I should have set so many more small expectations within there. I think people set the bar that like car buying's a really scary experience, and I didn't have somebody necessarily like walking right next to me, like pulling my hands like through all the steps. And since I I didn't have that, I was kind of like, oh, okay, then like it's not that important. I'm gonna take a pause, even though I know myself it was really important because my car blew up and I really had to deal with it in that moment. And I think a lot of times we do let that happen. Like, right, when you're in your car, the check engine light comes on, you ignore it, right? It's not that big of a deal, and then the car explodes. Instead of it coming on and saying like, oh, okay, this is a warning, I should listen to it and like follow through with it. Sometimes I feel like so much of the times we're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And you see me smiling over here.
You were the soundboard in that situation. You're like, Callie, come on.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for those that are listening that know Enneagram, I always associate our understanding of the world to that. You being an Enneagram 6, you're very introverted. You're a thinker. You go inward before you go outward. Me being an Enneagram 2, a feeler, I go out usually before I go in. Like, in February, I think we were driving to the gym together and I started like these conversations knowing you, but like, right, because most of the time when I start a conversation that has legs or some seriousness to it, what's your natural go-to?
I shut down.
Right. And you sometimes even like think you did something wrong. So I was trying to, knowing that and having learned through our journey together, I was just starting to be gentle about talking to you about the importance because, yeah, you were driving your college vehicle. It had already shown that it was struggling with some leaking and all of this. And so we started, and the first thing you did was create a budget. And if we're being real, like I was ready for that budget to be like on the dining room table, ready to review like that day. And talk to me about that process for you.
I just think sometimes like change is scary for me.
Yes.
And I've gotten way better with it, but I'm still navigating what that looks like. So sometimes I just want to avoid it because if I don't face it, then it's not as scary, right? So I think like now with the car, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm driving a car and it's reliable. This is so good.
Right.
I haven't had to make my first car payment, so that's a different story. But knowing that, like, that feels, and right, a 6, I crave security, protection, safety. That's what the car is giving me. The last car wasn't. So in a way, it was self-sabotaging myself, letting myself stay right in the chaos of that, which I've been able to notice sometimes I will let myself go there if I'm not careful. So
yeah. And now that we're through it, right, looking back, there's a lot of understanding, but it wasn't that clear going through it. And I think that's important as we talk about mindset and goals. It's like some days you're gonna you set a goal to get up in the morning and you're not gonna want to get out of bed, but then when you get out of bed and you walk through the day, you're so grateful that you did get out of bed and you made your bed and you went through the day and did all the things that you wanted to check off, right? To your point that, like, I'm so grateful to have, I didn't know how valuable it would be to buy a car and to execute in the way that I did, right? And so it's really important that, like, you allow yourself to walk through. So you said something about setting smaller goals. And when you think about setting smaller goals, like, how does that complement what we're talking about right now?
So right, like, I set a big goal, right? I'm gonna get a new car. And I said by the end of the year, right? But then I was kind of putting it off to the side, right? Instead, I remember when I came downstairs and we had a conversation, you were like, okay, when are you having a new car by? I was like, okay, this weekend. How are you going to do that? When are you going to have cars picked? And the moment's so frustrating for me. But, right, that weekend I had it, right? So being able to do that for yourself sets yourself up for success. And I think also setting those smaller goals that are achievable, right? It's like, oh, okay, I did do that. That feels really good. I can move forward with that rather than saying, like, okay, I'm going to have a new car tomorrow.
Right.
Out of frustration, it's tomorrow, and you don't do that. It feels like a defeat.
Right.
So sometimes, right, like when people go to the gym, like, don't start with saying you're going to go 7 days a week because it's probably not manageable. Starting smaller and saying, okay, I'm going to show up 1 time a week, right? And then that feels good. You've been able to acclimate it to your schedule, and then you can add in more days. It feels a lot better than setting yourself up essentially for not having any success in that moment.
Right. And so much of what we talked about before is coming up for me because as I think about our own personal journey, right? Like, I wanted you to have a car by May, right? And we're in December. And I was like, okay, let's go, right? But you had to come to this on your own and how much more meaningful. And I think the car actually had to really quite literally blow up for you to maybe learn this lesson. And what a hard thing as somebody who's in your life trying to walk this journey with you to watch that happen for you, right? And to be prepared and connected to that. It's hard. And realizing, and I like to kind of explain, like, we all have imprints inside of us, and those imprints are from past experiences most of the time as children, right? Like Polaroid camera imprints that, like, if you could snapshot what it meant to take a risk on yourself, right? What is that? You know, I'm not going to ask you to tell me that, but that's the kind of stuff that you were breaking through this process because it was likely as a kid you didn't learn. Take risks, right? Or you can do things that are hard, or those were all those Polaroid pictures that you had to meet, and now you're here to say you're ready, like, to do new things because those Polaroids aren't controlling you anymore, right? But knowing that, I mean, what a hard thing, because I'm like, she's hurting herself, and I didn't want to see you hurt yourself. But navigating that is so important for relationships, right? And for ourselves, right? Because look at you now. Like, there were times where you felt defeated or frustrated or can I do this, right? You even said to me one time, should I get a second job, right? Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And so right. And so as we navigate what it looks like to set goals in 2025, know that, like, it's not going to be perfect. Talk to me about, like, what do you think helped you be successful in, although it wasn't on my timeline, but in a span of time you were able to accomplish this goal? Like, what are some of the key elements that kept you on this path?
I think, like, a big, like, slam in the door, like a big slam, when a door slams in your face. I think that moment for me was when the car broke and I was like, oh, okay, like, this is legit.
Okay.
And I think I knew I needed a new car, but again, scary, how to walk through different things. So I think I was just kind of, again, right, pushing it off.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, I think I knew I needed to do it. But again, like you said, like, I do think that I needed to walk through this experience,
Mm-hmm.
because through walking through it, everything happened the way it was supposed to. Like, I went to this car dealership, like, the communication I had, everything, like, kind of just fell in line perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, again, proving that I needed to walk through this. Like, I needed to have that hard part and navigate it myself and see, like, this was a new, like, experience. And while you helped me and Dad did help me, like, I did a lot of, like, the back work myself.
Truly.
I'm capable of that. I can do that. I don't need somebody to walk me through it. And it's okay to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you can fail forward if you choose to, instead of failing and then going into this big dark hole. Right?
Okay.
So I think I did fail to some degree in that situation, right? I let my car explode. I didn't get as much money out of it. Really bad experience. But, right, like, again, deep healing out of it. Like, I learned so many cool things. If you stay on the surface, you just see, oh, my car broke and I let it, and I got a new car. If you go deeper, right, like, I learned that it's okay to fail, and I learned all these other cool, awesome experiences that if I don't allow myself to go there, I don't see. So,
yeah, that's so cool.
Mhm.
And the proverbial let them thing that's going around on social media, like, that's what had to live inside of me, like, let her, right? If we're going to go back to the stepmom, stepdaughter dynamic, like, you have to fall forward or fail, and if you fall backwards or forwards, it's up to you, but I wanted it so bad for you, but I couldn't make it happen. And I think that that's what has to happen as we set goals in 2025. Like, you individually, right, need to be the one that says, I want to do this and I'm going to make space for it, because you can do almost anything, right, when you are empowered to do that. But if you're relying on someone else, or you're relying on something else, or this perfect thing to happen, I'll do this when, right, the chances of it actually taking shape, right, it's going to have to be that slam in the door or the fall on your knees, whatever we say in our culture. But, like, literally, you're going to have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so, to me, finding community that supports you, finding a space within yourself that supports you, right? Finding support in a therapist or a coach or other people, a pastor, a woman's group, a men's group, places that you can fall forward. They can catch you if you need to, not trying to do these kinds of things alone, right? Because left to your own defenses, this might have looked a lot different.
Yeah. And, right, like, even though I did the hard work, right, like, in the moment, even though sometimes maybe it was annoying,
right,
some of the things you were doing, I'm so grateful for it, right? And it's essentially like having an accountability partner. Like, you were holding me accountable, and you were giving me the space of saying, like, okay, how can I hold you accountable this week that you're going to follow through and do that? That's so good, and I keep saying grateful, but I'm so grateful that I do have that, even in the moment if I'm not, because I know, right, if I'm left to my own defenses, maybe I would have pushed it off more, right? And again, like, being able to reflect on the opportunity or the situation and being able to say, okay, I'm going to learn from this, so they don't need a car to explode in my life again for me to, like, get my legs moving in a situation, right? And that'll allow me to fail forward, right? Instead of repeating the same situation and going in a cycle, right?
One step every day, right? We're not asking to take, like, the big, eat the whole elephant at once. It's the one bite at a time. And if we could get to that place and understand that, right, I think it's all or nothing mentality a lot of times in our culture. Like, I gotta do everything all at once or nothing at all, and that's paralyzing. And so to take one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, knowing that it's not going to be perfect every day, but if you show up for yourself, right, there's something positive is always going to be available if you do that work. So it's been so awesome. This was a good first experience for me, for you. Okay.
Totally.
Well, I'm thrilled, and I'm excited for whatever's to come. Thank you for your vulnerability today, and thank you for who you are, and thank you for everybody that's joined us today.